Hey guys, Bolt here, and I originally was to do a Nancy Drew, but I'm gonna move that till next week. So I came back from West Virginia earlier than I was supposed to. I have a few things I want to show off, and then we'll get into kind of how my trip was, and then I'll end it with like a small movie review because I went and watched Backrooms on my way home. So the first two things I did get were these pins from Mothman and Wendigo. I wish I got more. Like there was a Bigfoot, a Chupacabra, um, and a Goblin of like all the like cryptids. Definitely they'll be put up there. So there is a cardigan and a mint green shirt that I do have, but they're in the laundry. Um, so beside clothing and pins, this right here is what I really wanted. Like everything else can be pushed to the side. This is like the biggest thing that I really wanted. It's kind of like a classic movie poster. So I'm really happy with it. So I guess kind of going really into it with the vacation. So originally I was just gonna do my normal thing. I had to race through content to try to get ready for you guys. Um, I did not get to do what I wanted to originally. This was supposed to be until Tuesday. I was supposed to be home late night Tuesday, but instead I had to come home yesterday. So what happened was so West Virginia is the one where our primary thing for going was the Math Man Museum, the Myth Man Museum. Um, so we found a place in Galapagos, Travel Lodge, I think it was. Never again am I going to try to go cheap on hotels ever again. Like it looked like it was good, but it's like I signed in. They didn't have too much in terms of like I got to see a little bit of what their breakfast would have been. Not really much aside from like waffles and like some milk. We signed in, we got into the room and we were about to relax and it looked decent enough. Like there wasn't a lot. It was very thin of a room. They had a mini fridge. I had some English muffins, so I had butter and jelly, so it was decent enough for that stuff. I flipped over a blanket and I forgot the proper name for it, but it's known as a German cockroach, and it did not take us long to find several. And then we picked up a bed, and like several were scurrying across the bottom of it. So because we have so cockroaches can carry diseases, and you should never ever just deal with them. You must jump on getting an exterminator or leaving the place immediately to avoid it. Like I think one of the biggest ones I remember was like E. coli. I think they carry. So as soon as I saw that, I didn't want us to get kicked out, so I charged my phone for about an hour, and then after that, I'm like, hey, we're gonna have to refund, um, and they kept trying to be like, hey, we can give you another room. If a singular room in a building has them, there's high chance they've traveled and like have full reign, and not to mention these were babies, nymphs is what I believe they're called. So it's like, where's the mother? Um, he's probably scurrying around, eating what food it can get and whatnot. So it's just like, no, I'm not gonna stay where I can get sick. Um, or like, hey, it's gonna get carried back with me, which I'm not gonna deal with. Um, Luckily, we didn't settle in. We didn't bring any luggage in. We just came to check out the thing because that's the first thing I've been always taught. So, anyways, I went through this whole refund process. They said the owner said they couldn't do anything about the refund, which was a lie. I went through booking was what I went through to a reservation, get the reservation. Um, and they basically said I had to. No matter what, if you were supposed to arrive that day, they they'll charge you the first night, which is understandable. You know, it's very last minute, and even though it is on them to have such a horrible environment to be like, why are you still in business? I guess people just don't care. They kind of just want a cheap hotel. Um, I don't know what's happening with my hair. Um, so it's just like it ruined so much stuff so quickly. It took 3 hours to drive down there. So I'm trying to think what to really say here. Um, so 3 hours down, finally arrive, deal with that whole situation. I'm trying to deal with booking.com. They're like, hey, we're going to ask the owner if they're be willing to give you free cancellation where I get all my refund back. Um, they do already know about that one night thing, and they said they can't do anything about it, but it was actually, they completely were like, oh yeah, we're not going to do that for you. Like in my face, they say, yeah, we're not going to give you that cancellation. um and then like they kept saying, hey, we don't get that permission. And it's like, I'm waiting on your end to get my refund back. um I like I said, it was like a third of the cost because of the first night. But like, it was just, this person was like so adamant that they're just like, oh, our business is decent enough for you to either find another room or whatnot. And it's like, because of that, because they gave us an option, they thought it's a good enough reason not to get a full refund. And they said we left already, even though I was still sitting there and talking to them. And then because we wanted, me and my friend Nick went on this vacation. Because we still wanted a vacation, we had to go running around asking. Well, we had to call around to be like, "Hey, is there any last minute reservations we can make?" Of course, you're not gonna get a lot of wellness aside from like the crap hotels, which I'm already at a crap hotel. Why would I want to go anywhere? Luckily, I think it was Holiday Inn. Oh, I'm so happy we found them. Sadly though, uh they charged almost the same amount as our full 4 night stay for only 2 nights. Um, so we got stuck in with only a few nights, but we got there. We checked everything aside from like a little bit of like mess that was left. It was still nice. They had an AC unit. Everything, like, it was pretty decent. Me and and Nick were like, we're trying to sort our cards. So they had a lot of like sitting space, and then like everything else was just amazing. We got to like relax. We went to a Spanish place. Um, that was nice. It took a minute for us to get served because they were checking on everybody before they even took our order. But as soon as we got our order, everything came out fast. It came out amazing. The server, once he started checking on us, was so nice. Talked to us. And then the next day, the breakfast was not what we were expecting. Like, I'm so happy we actually upgraded because the other one just had waffles. This one had omelets, cinnamon rolls, sausage, biscuits and gravy. If you wanted cereal and oatmeal, there was that, and there was a pancaking making machine. Oh man, it was so good. Um, the staff was nice, professional. We they had a like little thing for pop and energy drinks if you wanted some. It was at a cost, of course. The second day was our major trip because it's like the only full day we had, and we went down to the Mothman, like the center point, Point Pleasant. We got pictures of Mothman, the Mothman statue. We got to go into this one bunker store. That was pretty cool. They had a zombie mask from Scooby Doo, the Swamp Zombie, which is which. They had a lot of other cooler hats that I kind of wish I bought, but yet I'm like, I didn't want to put that much money down. They had like military stuff. They had some like knickknackish stuff. Um, Nick got so many things. He got some posters. One of them was of Fallout 76 with Mothman. Um, and then he also got like an MRE, I think it was. Um, the like instant meal stuff. And then we moved down to the Mothman Museum, where it's like you go in, you pay five or something bucks, you get to see all of the like interview sheets, like them like getting a detailed report of them seeing the Mothman. You see quite a bit of the history of West Virginia. Um, they actually have like movie props from several things. Basically, if it is Mothman, it was a part of that museum. One of the two funniest things I saw was a fidget spinner with Mothman on the center. And then me and Nick, like I said, were into Yu Gi Oh! And they had Danger Mothman a part of their museum piece, just that random card. I'm kind of hoping that the theory was that it was the first ever printed English copy of Mothman, and that would be so cool if like they're like, hey, we'll let you make our people. We just want a card. Um, and then we moved over. There's a mini golf course. They had another. It was Trading Co. It was very similar. The museum had a few pieces, but it was so claustrophobic. Um, Me and Nick got to try a Nuka Cola Victory, which was a mango drink, I believe. Um, and then we went over. We got shirts. They had like Sasquatch stuff. Like there was a bunch of like interactive Bigfoot stuff like animatronics. It's one scared the crap out of me because he uh called me and was somewhere else. And when I finished up talking to him, it's like shh, hi, and it like scared me. And then they had a fortune telling booth, um, but it had Bigfoot in it. Um, so that was nice. We left there. We were supposed to go to the movies that day, but we ended up just staying, chilling, doing some card organization. We went up to a Japanese place that had like the grills, but we just kind of sat. He didn't like it too much because he's never a very big Asian food person, but that was still amazing to me personally. The only issue, so with the Mexican place, it was more of a smell and like it took forever to get an order in. And then with this one, it was like the seating was weird. Like so, we took a table after got satted because originally we do booths, but the booths were so like there was no padding on the bottom. It felt like you were on waves whenever you moved. And you'd always feel if anyone like plopped back on their seat, you'd feel them like hit you. Um, but the service itself was still good. I had some plum sake. He tried some cold sake. I think it was amazing for what it was. And then after that, we relaxed, woke up. We decided to leave. Well, like pack up, wait for our phones to charge, and then leave. Um, and then when we got back into Ohio, another 3 hour drive, we decided to go watch the Backrooms. Um, and then kind of ended on that with, and then I got myself a Chipotle burrito. And then I also ordered myself some Papa John's for today, for yesterday and today. So enjoyability for myself, I think the experience was amazing. Um, there is something to be proud of to be part of Virginia. West Virginia versus Ohio is such a gloomy, rundown place that there is nothing to be proud of here. You can feel the environment; it's just so gloomy. So I'm kind of just sad to be back up here. And then my time with Nick, while like chilling was cool, we got along for the most part. The only issues were like he has an injury going on. He kept calling it a nerve, which he doesn't have. He's dealing with like the worker class like insurance thing, and he can't really get into something, so he needs it done no matter what to get back to work. Um, but like that kind of put a hinder on a lot of walking. Like the mini golf was kind of a pain because we had to wait like almost every other or every hole because like he had to lay down. Not to mention he had to go like interrupt us going from place to place to go sit down, which as long as he's safe, I'm happy. But it's just like it did put a hinder on time and like enjoyability. And then like kind of throwing it out there, I think if I ever want to watch a movie that I really like or something like that, I think I'm gonna go alone because um we got into a little bit of a huff and puff match over it with like I've kept up with movie stuff and all that because I watch 3C films and stuff, but like we got into like copyright rights with it, and I'm just like, well, you don't understand what's happening here and what's happening. And then he's like, oh well, they can sue this, sue that for like the Backrooms IP, and that kind of ruined that evening for me entirely because it just like you like we were like gonna generally talk about it, which I'll get into here in a second, but it was just like it's such the little fun that it came with um when I did that. So I'm just never gonna have anybody with me unless that person is in love with the thing like I am. Like I'm really sad I didn't get a chance to bring my one friend Jordan, who I made the Pokemon stuff with. I really hoped she would have came with me for Digital Circus. I think we have had a lot of fun. Um, I just don't think unless it's kind of a situation with her, I doubt I want to do anything with him anymore. Just because we have such different taste, and like I I don't want to call him on this, but he has a lot of tangible but not tangible information that he fights people on, and he gets super defensive on it. And I think just if I want to enjoy something, I don't want him to be a part of it if it's something I really care about. Um, he really wanted to see Supergirl. I'm just not a fan of it. I've been trying to hype myself up for it, but I just don't care about it. Superman was a different story. Her, I'm good. Um, so let's get into Backrooms. This is a high six or a low seven at best. I'd give it maybe a 2.5 stars. Um, the only good stuff purely was in the very beginning when they were showing like the YouTube series stuff with like the radiation suit people, the Havoc suit people walking around. But and like unless you watch Kane Pixel's stuff, you really didn't understand what I think it's async had to do with it, and like they were barely like. I think a movie should really get into the why and the reason. It did not. It did not. I loved Markiplier's Iron Lung because it was just so like it explained its reasoning. It had some mystery to it of what was happening, and like context clues gives you some understanding of it, and like you can read into it. This one just like async, aside from just like they have knowledge about it and they researches it, and like they're a government entity kind of like, they are useless in this movie. Like, of course they're like, hey, you've seen it on YouTube, here's what we do, and that way there's a connection to the YouTube and the movie. But then you have the two main characters, the therapist and the furniture seller. I'm not going to know their names because that's how little I cared. um so let's just start with the ending, which is the therapist. She was so useless in this movie. I understand she was supposed to be kind of like a last act person, but she was an unneeded role. And like the whole thing with this is like, yes, people are gonna have personal issues, and that's understandable. I really think they should have made another movie with their issues. It would have made more sense, and I would have cared more. I was more worried about this new, like this environment, getting to understand the reactions that these characters have, and like the therapist whole thing is just like the furniture's the I'm trying to remember what I should call him. Is like the furniture guy, I'm just gonna call him, is just like he's got this whole thing with a divorce and all that, and basically he wants to be in complete control. He wants to be completely like a power tripper because he makes money, and he loses his wife, loses his home because of it. He tries to force his like store to be decent because he wants to go this uh extra mile but not pay for the extra mile. um and it's just kind of an annoying set, like info bit, and it's like an info dump that I just don't care about who what is it in the end. And then like the therapist, it's like very similar to Smile, where like the mother has some like mental issues going on. Like if it was like the mother was originally someone who worked on with async, or is one of the first public people, citizens to run into the back rooms, I think that would have made more sense for her. um but it's just like everything that had to do with him personally, I did not care about. I think like throwing it out in the beginning is understandable. But like once we start getting into like the electric is starting to be drained because there's an unknown source here, that's where it should have been like, okay, we're locking down any personal relationships we have now are going to enter this at some point. We're not going to worry about who they are as people. They're here for a horror scenario and getting into it. Kind of going into his employees. I understood like these were the two people they brought in so they can kill somebody. Really, the only one I think that really should have died was the boyfriend. I forgot his name, but the guy who like he went to explore. He found the nest of I'll kind of get into him, but like the worst of the worst, he got into the nest of, and he ended up dead because of it. Um, I think the assistant manager, like his girlfriend, should have lasted longer, or could have replaced what the therapist was in the end. Um, just because I think the therapist should have been a thrown away character, and I think having the assistant manager kind of being like originally when they were talking about the back rooms, I think her being like not really ready to go, I think that should have been the like mother concept from the therapist and put into the assistant manager, where it's just like, yes, I've dealt with somebody with other mental issues, you need to stop. um and I think that would have been fine, kind of like dealing with this man she known for so long, to kind of go crazy. Then we kind of get into the villains. I agree with Nick on this one. The monsters for this one, aside from their concept, just sucked. So like in the Backrooms IP with like the online stuff, you're so used to the like party goers, which I think everyone knows them for, or like all these other random things that have to do with the floors, and then what everyone sees in this movie is the office spaces, which is usually level one, or like in some of them different space like rooms with um similar stuff. um but it's just like not seeing those monsters that should and would pop up in a small environment like this. um but the only thing that was cool about the monsters and kind of the environment is like it being a memory of what everything was. That way it explains it kind of. I don't understand how they work. Like the furniture guy goes crazy and says you can eat them, and then at the very end, um, is dealing with the big guy and all these others that are just kind of sitting around. And then the big guy, who turns out to be a like incomplete, which is the whole thing about these copy people, is like they're versions of the originals, but yet they have like no emotions or whatnot and no feeling. And they're so often like we see what is possible. His wife being copied. We see some guy in a wheelchair copied. We see this um one guy, which I think is like the one guy that faces him in terms of like furniture sales. I think he shows up, and in general, it's just I don't care for any of them. I think his incomplete version um was one of the betters, just because it's kind of like he's this overly powerful non-feeling thing that will kill anybody that's in his way. um so I think it's just like the very beginning and like what hints to at the very end with all these scans and all that, um of like the environment. I think that's the only thing I can really say that was good about it. Everything else is just like it's completely a different movie. But I think that's all I gotta say about the Backrooms. I am going to stop being negative and kind of let you guys have your own opinion about it. I just think it wasn't worth it in the end to go and see. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.